Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For the next half hour, we'll be covering the topic how to automate better phishing simulations with AI. Joining me today is Maxime Cartier, who is a security behavior and culture expert with past experience leading security awareness programs for global organizations. Maxime, would you like to say a few words?
Yes. Hi, Elliot. I'm looking forward to this session and thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Maxime. I started my journey in cybersecurity about 9 years ago. And back then I felt that the human element was often left out of most of the projects I was working on. So I decided to focus on it and I contributed to security awareness, behavior, and culture programs for several global companies in manufacturing and aerospace. And then between 2019 and the beginning of this year, I was at H&M Group, the retail company, head of security culture and competence. And today I'm the founder of Habit Hackers and advise several organizations on this fascinating topic that is human risk management.
I love it, Maxime. So much about what we do in cybersecurity awareness really comes down to habits. Also joining us is Petri Guivala, who is Hawkshunt's CISO advisor and a longtime CISO at large enterprises such as Nokia and NXP Semiconductors. Thanks for joining us, Petri.
Thanks, Elliot. Good to be here again.
Great. And I'm Elliot Baker, Director of Content Marketing, working closely with the product teams here at Hawkshunt to share cybersecurity education with the world. Today, we'll be discussing the resource crunch of security training, why manual simulations don't work, how automation plus AI transforms training, getting back to strategic work.
Yeah, so we are as CISOs constantly battling how do we get enough competencies into our teams. And I think that one of the problems is that we waste our resources with low value work that is not really reducing the risk, but is more just turning the knobs and doing the things that could be automated. I want all of my people to work on the topics that are really contributing of reducing the risk to the maximum. I don't want them to be working with low value adding work. So we have here a high level table about an old way of doing things where you need to turn the knobs, consume quite a lot of time on managing the tool, or you then actually take the managed service and you actually get the better quality results and less workload. And you can redirect your people to do more value-adding work. So why doesn't the manual training really work? What's the problem with it? Uh, I used to have a team member who was really good in security operations, but because of my resource crunch, I also had to kind of task him to take care of making the simulations. Initially, of course, I thought it's going to take 5% of his time, if even that. But at the end of the day, it turned out to be more than 30% of his time continuously. And even then, he was capable of delivering only 12 simulations a year, once a month. Yeah, that might be okay with the compliance setup, but it's not having any real impact. It's interesting actually to see how much work goes behind the scenes that you are not necessarily thinking of. Elliot, maybe you could actually walk us through what are the activities that these sort of people need to do day in, day out.
Absolutely. And being able to send even one phishing simulation per month is actually pretty impressive, Petri, from some of the different CISOs I've spoken with. They often don't have the resources to send more than one per quarter. And when you look at the checklist that they have to go through, it's really comes into focus why it's so difficult to have a frequent and ongoing program. So looking at this checklist here, we'll just go through these different items that people would typically have to go through. First, you start determine the social engineering technique for your phishing campaign, name and describe the simulation, select payload and login page, target relevant users, create fail landing page, create fail training, create end user notifications, translate into relevant languages, double check all details, test the simulation, schedule the simulation launch, monitor simulation progress, report on simulation results. and a partridge in a pear tree. I mean, it's really just goes on and on and on. So you can imagine how if you could automate all of those different items, you're going to really save yourself a lot of grunt work.
So in summary, you are paying the premium for really automating the work, releasing your people to where they are delivering the best value and getting the real results that you are wanting to get out of this. It is not just a compliance activity. It is an activity where you are really changing the behavior of the human beings.
So how can we do better? How can we improve the way we do phishing training? Well, phishing is still a major risk for any organization. So I believe that phishing training is extremely important. But I also always felt that running phishing simulations manually would not be the best use of my time as a security awareness manager, as Petri explained. When you're alone or just a small team working with this topic, I didn't want to have all of my time or perhaps even a full FTE focusing on this topic alone when we had dozens of other activities to manage. And the thing is, we have the technology today to give the tedious part of the work to a software program. So there's a lot in a phishing risk reduction program that I believe should be automated. And it's not only about saving time. With AI and automation, we can also make the program much better for our colleagues. Let me start with an example. In this company, in the picture, there is 15,000 employees in 6 countries. Some of them are working in the office, like Jane, the HR manager, but others are working in a warehouse or in a store. Some are based in the US, others are in France, others are in China. And some of them have been in the company for 10 years, others have just started yesterday. Maybe some of them are fresh out of college, some of them are close to retirement. And of course, some of them might be naturally interested in security and already aware of the risks, while others might be scared or perhaps indifferent to the topic. So it's no surprise that any large company will have a huge diversity of employees working in it. And in this context, a global training, a global phishing simulation sent to everyone, it's practical, but it can only have limited impact. From research, we know that there are 2 prerequisites for learning to happen. And first, the content, the material, the objectives of the training, they need to be relevant to you. It's quite intuitive that if I'm a software developer, there are chances I won't be very interested in learning about business developments. And vice versa. If I'm working with sales, I'm probably not very interested in how to code. So there's 2 types of trainings that you will actually go through with attention. Either something that you're naturally interested in, or something that you think will be useful or beneficial for you. And that's why training must be targeted to an individual or to a group, both in terms of context and content. And second, learning happens at the boundaries of knowledge. So there's this research from Robert Wilson, the 85% rule. And it has shown that optimal learning occurs when individuals are correct about 85% of the time, meaning that the task is neither too easy nor too difficult. Kind of similar to the flow theory. Maybe you know this one that says that you get engaged and lose track of time when you're stimulated at just the right level. And in the context of phishing simulation, we can use that by saying that we can achieve optimal learning when the click rate is around 15%. And it can seem high if your objective is to, of course, protect the company, but your objective is also training people here. And you can train them better with this type of click rates. Higher than that, and too many employees are probably frustrated about the difficulty of the simulations and feeling tricked. And lower than that, things are too easy, and not only people might get bored, but they also won't be prepared for the most advanced attacks. So in order to make the training relevant, the first thing we need to do is learn about our employees. That means getting to know what is their role in the company, their department, where they're based in the world. It also means looking at the language they use the most at work and their time zone, for example, so that we can send the simulations in the language in which they expect to receive emails and during their working hours. We can look at who's their manager, their colleagues, their coworkers, which tools they use the most in their daily work and most likely to receive emails from. So those are some of the insights that the Oxen solution actually learns from each individual, either via the Active Directory or by asking the security team or the individual themselves. And then we feed them to the Oxen AI engine. And this engine will start building out personalized, unique training paths for everyone. In this unique individual learning path, there are 2 things. First, simulated email-based attacks, the phishing simulations that are created just for you. And there's an example here on the right, but also a pass for micro-learning moments. And micro-learning moments are more traditional training where you're presented with some information and a quiz question, for example, but they are delivered in bite-sized formats. So quite short, we're talking about 1 or 2 minutes stop and continuously, either after the phishing simulations themselves, after you click or report them, or independently of them via Teams, Slack, email. And this micro learning path is also made just for you, just like the simulations based on the individual characteristic that we talked about. But that's not all. Using AI, we also have the opportunity to ongoingly adapt this training path based on the actions that an individual is taking. The path that we build for someone when they join the company shouldn't be static. Let's look at Jane. If she's succeeding in reporting training emails, we aim to challenge her further, bring her to the next level, and making the next simulation just slightly more difficult or using a different psychological factor. And that way she can continue to learn. But on the other hand, if she clicks, well, we know that was a tough one, so we can adapt and give her the chance to catch the next one instead by sending her an easier training email. And let's talk too about how we can use this outside of phishing simulations with micro learnings. When a colleague becomes really good in a topic, let's say information protection, we can automatically add them to the more advanced level of information protection. Or the next bite-sized training that will be shared with them will be on a different topic, like social engineering. And AI, because we're talking about machines here, about technology, it can review all parameters very frequently, and based on that, select the right content for each person continuously. At Oxens, that's done automatically every hour. That way we trick less, but we always help employees to keep learning and succeeding. Another way to personalize the learning path to each individual is to collect insights from your technology stack, learning about people's digital behaviors. So for example, you can connect with Microsoft Rectify, Microsoft Defender to understand how people are sharing files or which cloud sharing services they are using. The goal is that when we detect a potentially dangerous behavior, we trigger a specific intervention going directly to the person who has shown this behavior. And the intervention should first be designed to understand why the behavior happened. Ask about the reason why this employee did the thing that they did, because perhaps it was because they didn't know. And then we should guide the employee towards the correct behavior. But perhaps the behavior also nothing to do with the lack of knowledge. Perhaps the employee felt that the solution proposed by security doesn't often work. Doing an intervention targeted specifically at the individual who exhibits a poor security behavior at the moment in time where the behavior is happening, it can be extremely powerful. But I also want to emphasize that it should be done with respect and empathy to help employees to do the right thing. So Oxens is currently testing this with several customers, and some nudges have shown that they can create a real behavior change in people. There are some examples on this slide. And if you have the right skills and resources in your team, you can also create this yourself by using APIs to collect behavioral data from your tools. But make sure to test interventions on a small scale before automating them for everyone, because it can be quite difficult to create the behavior change that you want. And finally, if there's one thing I don't like, it's wasting time. And we know that employees can only spend a limited amount of time on security. So how can we use that time in the best way? We've talked about how we can adapt security training based on an employee characteristics, who they are, their role, their location, their colleagues. And also how we include what employees do. For example, their previous behaviors on trainings and simulations, but also in a live environment. There's a third category of valuable input we can give to the AI model, and that's the threat landscape. Because not only people are different, but the threats that they are facing might be extremely diverse too. So what if we could automatically and continuously adapt training to the real threat landscape for each industry, each region, preparing people for the real attacks of today? By analyzing the millions of malicious emails that are reported by Oxens users every year, we can build profiles for each industry, job function, geography, and understand what they are targeted with and how much. What are they targeted with the most? Is it authority impersonation attacks? Is it IT impersonation? dangerous files, credentials harvesters, and overall, how often are they targeted? With this analysis, instead of providing standard training to everyone, we can adapt the training emails sent to each employee, preparing them for the threats they are most likely to receive. That way, employees are trained on what really matters. On the next slide, there's a recap of the three components we're feeding the AI engine with: individual characteristics, threat landscape, and behaviors. With that, you can create uniquely personalized and relevant content for each employee at the right level of difficulty so that they can continuously learn. And the real power in using AI and automation comes from the personalization of the content, but also from the fact that it allows you to run this for everyone much more often and with less resources than in a manual process. And we know that frequency is crucial to actually change behaviors. To create a habit, such as reporting phishing emails, it needs to be an action that is easy enough, but also that it's repeated often. And the only way to do this at scale is to have the work lifted off by AI and automation. So listen, I feel that we cannot continue this webinar without mentioning the advent of generative AI, or it would be in the questions anyway. So here's my take on it. I strongly believe that in the near future, let's say 12 to 18 months, most of the awareness and training content will be created with the help of generative AI. We've seen how good it is with text already. It's also quite good for images, and videos are looking promising. So if you're not doing it already and using generative AI to help you, I really recommend that you start now. And why again? Because of course, it saves time. We've talked about that. It's great to be able to have images or videos created with less resources. I also found that sometimes ChatGPT can actually show more empathy than humans in a security team. But that's not the most important reason. The most important reason is that by cutting the amount of time and resources that it takes to create the content, and by combining it with a bit of automation, you can create this relevant and personalized content at scale. And that's what I believe will be truly impactful. So there's one thing that both Petri and I felt was important to finish with. When we talk about AI automation, we're talking about saving time, preventing manual work. But what we don't mean is using these tools to replace security awareness professionals. I think most organizations actually don't have enough people working on this topic. But automating phishing simulations and training prevents security awareness leaders like me from spending too much time on basic and time-consuming tasks when there are thousands of other things to do in your day. So instead of spending time running manual phishing simulations once a month or a quarter for everyone, well, firstly, I can be more available for helping my colleagues, both colleagues in the security team that might need help for their communication, branding, support on behavior change, and for everyone else in the organization when they contact me with a question. And that's the part I never want to lose, the kind of human touch of collaborating and helping colleagues.
Yeah. Let me, Maxime, actually throw in something interesting. Very recently, I had an opportunity of working with one of our largest customers, and they had the problem that 99% of security cases were caused by 1% of the population only. The main challenge was that these people were customer facing, they were supplier facing, meaning that suppliers and customers were sending emails with attachments to these people. Attachments that they had to open and which sometimes actually had viruses built into them. Obviously, that's not an awareness problem at all. That's a problem that you can resolve with a good security architecture and virtualization, for example. But you as a CISO don't understand that these people needs that until you understand that we have a problem, and then you engage your security awareness people's minds and interview them.
Yeah, and I think it's also about moving from operations to improvement in a sense. So with free time that you don't have to spend on operations, you can dig into that data, understand where are the biggest gaps, understand why those gaps are here, and share and report that data, but also create the relationships with the different stakeholders in the organization. And that takes a lot of time to build those relationships. That's something that, again, you can't automate, but that is crucial so that you can really reach into the entire organization. Yeah, doing deep dives, designing and testing new type of behavioral change interventions, giving help, supporting employees, creating those relationships. Those are all things that I cannot automate and that I want to focus my time on. Great. And I think that's all we had. Elliot, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I really loved the entire thing, the entire conversation that the two of you just had. And I appreciated that slide, one size fits none. That really captures the whole idea of what you're talking about here. And what's so ironic is that you can actually use artificial intelligence to become closer to the individual people inside of your organization. And that's what I think you really described here is how you no longer have to do all this operational heavy lifting when you can use artificial intelligence correctly. You're able to actually past all the busy work to really do the intelligent work, the human intelligence work towards understanding people, meeting them where they're at, and then moving things forward in a positive direction. So thank you very much, Maxime. Thank you very much, Petri.